of the challenges or decisions that you need to make when we're playing melodic style in the key of D without a capo, follow me, key of D without a capo, is we could tune the fifth string either to G or to A. In a lot of the arrangements that I have on the Peghead Nation course, I am arranging these with the fifth string tuned to A. The reason why I like to do that is if I'm going to be accompanying a fiddler like Fletcher Bright, I am going to be doing a lot of roll pattern backup, and by having the fifth string at A, I can fret a D chord and I can play the fifth string all that I want and that it sounds great. If I'm at G and I'm playing the D down the neck, I may choose to avoid that fifth string. So that's really my main decision. I'd say increasingly with a lot of the hip young players, I'm seeing them arrange pieces in the key of D with the fifth string tuned to G. And as we explore the differences in these two arrangements we're about to tackle, you'll see the advantages and the disadvantages of each one. In both cases, whether you're at G or A, once you work out a few tunes, you get used to the positions and they're about equally easy/difficult, depending upon how much time you have to practice. The advantage of the fifth string tuned to G in the key of D is that we're falling back on a lot of the melodic positions we already knew in using for the key of G. Now, the difference in scale between a D major scale and a G major scale, they both have the F sharp note. That's the G major scale. A D major scale has an F sharp as well. The one note difference is the D major scale has a C sharp instead of the C. So if we just kind of do it from the very bottom, and we went over this last week, that the seventh note of the scale is the C sharp. If you go to the first page of Arkansas Traveler and go to the very bottom, very, very bottom, I have the fifth string tuned to G, 2-octave D major scale. And now we can start on the fourth string open. That's our D note, and we're going to do a little bit of single string because we don't have any choice that low, right? Alternation of thumb and index. And now as we climb up, there's our C sharp right there. So a G major scale would have a C, but for the D major, C sharp. Now take a look. We're going to encounter this position quite a bit, whether the fifth string is tuned to G or A, because we're down the neck here. This is like the bottom part of an A chord. Well, the chords that are natural to the key of D are D, G, and the 5 chord is A. So, and these chords are built up of the passing tones, the notes that are in between the notes of the D major chord. So this idea of fretting these bottom two with the ring and the middle most of the time is something that we're going to encounter a lot. Let's get used to it. So that scale working up. Now, you have E and F sharp. Could do that on 5 and 4, as I've indicated, or I could do 7 and 9. If you look at the bottom line, I've got those phrases in boxes, and I'm doing 7 and 9 on the inner strings on the way down, 5 and 4 on the way up. Either way. Now check this out. To get the last 4 notes of the scale, we've got another one of these movable positions. And in this case, we've got G, A, B, that's our banjo in the hollow position, right? And then the C sharp is going to be at the 11th fret of the 5th string. Now for the G scale, we were worried about fretting the C either with the thumb or a finger. But with this position, I think it's really difficult to use the thumb. Let's use the ring finger and then the index finger on the 1st string. So we've got this movable position that is no fun at all. But that's what it looks like. And as we're going up and down the scale, I might put the 10 and 9 down first and then the C sharp and D. Now, those of you with less experience with this is about as hard as it gets. Don't get discouraged with this. You can still play lots of music without being able to do this very easily. But I wanted to show you how these scales lay out. One convenient thing about using this position here on the top 2 strings rather than here is I can just move the 5 and 4 up to the 10 and 9. Right? So, and luckily, as I've said before, I don't know of any fiddle tunes that go straight up and down a 2-octave scale. But again, we work out our fingering. I'll choose the 7 and 9 here. Down. Now, That's the 2-octave scale with the 5th string tuned to G. Take a moment now and tune your 5th string to A. And for me, as I slip the string underneath the railroad spike, which probably many of you have railroad spikes, that's almost always going to make the string sharp. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit. Now, so with the 5th string tuned to A, we have to find the G note on another string. Because the A is higher, we don't have a G anymore. It's an A. So we have the G here at the 5th fret of the 1st string. We also have it on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. If I were to play a scale fragment using the 5th string tuned to A, I could play the 1st string open, find my E on the 9th fret of the 2nd string, my F sharp with my middle finger on the 7th fret of the 1st string, and then the G note with the index finger fretting 5th fret of the 1st string, and then the A. Check this out. Once more. Now this is a very stretched out position, no fun at all. A lot of times if I'm going straight up and down though, I'm gonna go from one note to the other, trying to give it as much sustain as possible, but maybe lifting up the pinky so that I can get these other 2 notes. This position, if you check out my arrangements of tunes like St. Anne's Reel and Whiskey Before Breakfast in the Bluegrass Banjo course, coupon code BILL-E to check it out for a full month, you'll see that when we've got the 5th string tuned to A, this position is going to be used a lot. Go a line up in the tablature here for the basic melody page for Arkansas Traveler, and we see how the scale lays out with the 5th string tuned to A. We're starting the same. Here's our C sharp, but here it's different. We're going to find the E on the inner string. Now, since I have my middle and my index finger on the top 2 strings, I may just scoot those up on the same string. It's an A, C sharp, and then use my thumb. Okay, but like the other keys, you have a choice. If you really don't like fretting the 5th string with your thumb, you could fret the 12th fret 2nd string with the ring, index on the 1st string, and then that leaves you the middle finger on the 1st string. Same dynamic that we had in the last tune as to whether or not you want to use the thumb or not. And I can even grab another note here. And that stretched out position. One more time. And then back down. Changing fingering just to show you. Try it both ways and go with what works well for you. Now, it's a lot of work, isn't it? With Scruggs-style, we just play roll patterns and we play licks, but this is like the kind of discipline that piano players and violin players and guitar players and mandolin players have to do. And again, unlocking the scales, getting familiar with the fingering opens up a whole world. One difference with many of these arrangements is that every note is a melody note. And in my experience, the significant others in our household and our children like melodic style a lot better when we're practicing because it sounds prettier. But the secret to it again is getting those positions. Now, so here is a basic version for and so what I did here with this version is that we've got a basic version with the 5th string tuned to A, and then we have a more elaborated version with the 5th string to G, so that you can kind of experiment with each way of doing it. This basic version isn't all that basic actually, but I wanted you to get a handle on experiencing playing a tune in both ways. That's just a really important part of melodic style here, and then deciding for yourself which way you wanted to go to. Let me play the entire arrangement if I can. Here, the basic arrangement, then we'll talk about it. 1, 2, 3. Oh, this song, by the way, picking up a baby bumblebee, right? That's the melody. So here we go. Real popular fiddle tune. 1, 2, 3, 4. Repeat. take a look at my notes here. Couple I'll work on putting up some corrections in the tab, but if we take a look at line 3, measure 3, the last note I have written as an A note. Well, we also have that same A note on the 7th fret of the 4th string. This is going to be important in single string style too, important in melodic style. And actually, if we stick to that 7th fret instead of what I've indicated, the 2nd fret on the 3rd string, then we're right there to play the next phrase. Okay, so that's one correction. And as we were talking about earlier, we've got a lot that bottom part of the A major chord comes up quite a bit, and I'm going to fret that most of the time with the ring and the middle finger. You still have a choice to where to play the E and the F sharp. You can either go to 5 and 4 or 9 and 7 on the inner strings like we did in the key of G. All right. If there are no questions on this immediately, let's back up. So the beginning of the second half is that incredibly stretched out position. My thumb is kind of sideways firmly in the middle of the neck. If I'm playing Scruggs-style, I'm going to try to bring the thumb up. This is a very stretched out position. Let's think of the index and middle as being the home base. So if you look at the tab, line 3, the last of the pickup at beat 4, I'm going to fret 1 and then 2 and then keep those down. And then adding the pinky, either keeping it down if your hand will allow you to do that, or playing it and lifting it up. You got to do it again. And then note that the first string gets revealed. It's a cascading phrase. Oftentimes in these fiddle tunes, we don't go straight up and down a scale, but we catch a little fragment and we go up and down within that framework. So that 5, 7, 9 is the thing if we're going to tune the 5th string to A. Now let's take a look at the key of G, or actually the key of D with the 5th string at G. All right, and one of the things I commented about the key of G is that we will encounter melodic positions that we've used before, or with slight changes. Remember, in the key of D, we have a C sharp instead of the G. And let me play you this. I've labeled it as a more elaborate melody. It is a little bit, but not much. It sounds like this. Let me check my tuning. I think I'm okay. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, a couple of interesting things that are happening there. Again, the prevalence of the G positions that we already know. Sometimes, though, what would be a chord tone in the key of G is a passing tone in the key of D. So we're fretting things, but we're fretting things maybe in different rhythmic places than we were before. I threw a couple of kind of fancy things in. I wanted to kind of get a sound of a bagpipe or a fiddle right here. So I'm hitting a pinch with the thumb and middle fingers on the 3rd and 1st strings and sliding from the 6th to 7th. Aye, sounds pretty good. St. Patrick's Day is coming up. The chord goes to an A. Notice that that's 2 more notes of our A chord. Then I'm going to take that and switch it over so I can catch the D note. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. Of course, in the D major scale, we could find the D note on the open string. But I've got this phrase here, the last 4 notes of measure 3. If I was going to play a D note, I'd have to play the first string twice. And again, our melodic rule is we're trying not to do this. I could actually go to the 9 and 7 there, and that works really well. And then instead of playing the D on the 7th fret of the first string, I could play it open. I actually like that better. I might change that, but you've got that choice. Now, here's line 2. A triplet. The triplet, if you look at the notation, the last 2 eighth note spaces, measure 2, line 2, there's a little 3 underneath. That means it's a triplet. The rhythmic value is an eighth note. So what the triplet means is that we're compressing 3 notes into the space of 2. And you can hear that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3. Triplet. That second measure. 1 and 2 and 3. Triplet. And our end. Okay, now the big difference with the 5th string tuned to G in this arrangement comes in the second half. Instead of doing that bear of a position, we have positions that we have experienced in Blackberry Blossom. If I pick it up from line 3, the last 2 notes, that time I did go to those inner notes to accommodate the open first string. C sharp in the scale. Then here, at 4, 5, and 7, we're going to counter that up and down the neck. One interesting thing about this position, if we start from the 3rd string, we have consecutive scale notes, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd notes of the scale in that stretched out position. Then, a real fancy little lick here. Kind of descending pattern in thirds. I'm going to start that phrase, line 4, in beat 4 with the 11th fret, F sharp on that 3rd string instead of the 2nd string, because then that sets up the position. 5 and 4. There's my D note. Then shifting to the C sharp with pinky and ring. This is a little bit tough. Check this out. Right here, though, we've got 4 strings consecutively, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, down across the strings. Well, our picks only have 3 fingers. This relates to the question earlier in the lesson. I'm going to fret that in the right, or pick it in the right hand with middle, thumb, index, thumb. It's a great exercise here. Just going across all 4 strings, bringing the thumb into the 2nd string, index, thumb. Rather than doing 2 indexes, which you could do, try it both ways and see what you like. I remember drilling this when I was a wee tyke and getting used to doing it this way. The other way, if we are going to go ascending, thumb, index, thumb, middle. It's harder to do 2 indexes going up because the pick motion of the index is going down and we have to really reach over. So thumb, index, thumb, middle, going up, going down, middle, thumb, index, thumb. We're going to encounter this, I think a bit. We're going to look at Alan Mundy's solo to Blackberry Blossom, historically important, wonderful solo, as well as Bill Keith's solo to a tune called New Camptown Races. And Alan does quite a bit of this, and this is how he does it. So it makes sense to me. That descending phrase beginning then line 4, beat 4. Up, take 2. Really fun. And our ending. Notice that depending upon where I'm going with the melody, I might use my index and middle fingers for that A chord, but then this phrase, if you look at the very last line, 4, 5, 6, requires me to shift over. Again, not unusual. We're catching our fingering in these note clusters. Let's review the 3rd tune. we are going to work out Red-Haired Boy. I bet a lot of you play this in melodic style already in the key of G. Right? We're going to try it in the key of A without the capo. You can do this. It's not that hard. This tune, along with Old Joe Clark, Squirrel Hunters, which is a popular tune, June Apple, are in a mode. A mode is akin to a scale called the Mixolydian mode. I have no idea where that came from. These are very old terms that have been used for a long time, slightly before Earl Scruggs' era. And the Mixolydian mode is basically a major scale with a lowered seventh. So if at G major, it'd be G, A, B, C, D, E, F. Whoops. Sorry. Next to the major scale, this is a frequently used mode in banjo playing. Old Joe Clark. Red-Haired Boy. If we were to play Old Joe Clark like this, it becomes something different. Well, so the A Mixolydian is going to be the same as the D major. Think about that. The A chord is the 5 chord in the key of D, and its scale is going to be the same as D. So, for instance, by analogy, in the key of G, our 5 chord is D, or D7. That scale is going to be the same as the G major scale. Right? So this A Mixolydian, or A7 scale, has the G note, same as the D. If you go to page 2 for a minute, you'll see that, that we've laid out on line 3 the Mixolydian scale 1 octave. And if we've worked something out in the key of D already, this is going to be familiar. One thing that I'm doing here is I'm shifting positions right here. Middle for the C sharp, and then I'm going to use the middle and index for the E and the F sharp. You could, you kind of have to, really no question. Shift. Okay, now if we go up another half octave, shifting. Well, we encountered this position when we played the D major scale. So we're really, when you learn these scales, in reality, you're learning more than one scale. You're learning a couple of different modes, and these positions that we learn will then later be used in minor keys. So now, if we go back to the first page for Red-Haired Boy, what I did with this arrangement was I created basic melodies for the first A section and the first B section, and more elaborated melodies for the second A section and the second B section. So if you're new to this and you want to grab a hold of this tune and have fun with it right from the outset, play A1 twice and B1 twice. When you're ready to play the slightly more elaborated version, go to A2 and B2. Here's the entire arrangement for you, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. 1, 2, 3. A2. B1. again. All right? So there we go, both versions. Taking a look at my notes here. There's a kind of a cool lick here in A1 and or A2 and B2 here. If we're looking at page 2, line 2, the third measure. Resolving to the A note. There's that 8th fret is our lowered G note, which makes it a Mixolydian mode. Kind of a really cool position, which is easy to grasp. And if you go down to the bottom of the page, if we extend this a little bit, if I'm locked into one position, I could take my ring finger and go over to the 5th string and create a cascading lick. I'm looking now at the next to bottom line. That really kind of a cool kind of lick. If you're playing a song with a long A chord that's kind of a bluesy tune, you could just play this down for, fills up 4 measures. Sounds like this, 3, 4. Time again. Middle finger on the inside string there at the end, lots of forward rolls. Now, you can take that sound and that concept and start one more higher position. Our A major chord, D shape, 9, 10, and 11 on the 3, 2, 1. If I take that 5th string fretted position, or 1st string, and go over to the 5th string, pivot around and get a B passing tone, I could play 10, 9, 11. That's a movable position. We're going to talk about these movable positions next week, but we've now got another cascading lick that starts higher, still using the A Mixolydian scale. Check this out. Bottom line of the 2nd page. Cool. Amaze and impress your friends with these long cascading licks. You can work these cascading licks out in any key. Grabbing, you don't have to grab all the scale notes. Here's a C. D. So using the rules that we established last time with the cascading licks, there's some A ideas. So what I want you to do here is, if you're more introductory level player, less experienced, play the easy versions. Don't get tangled up in the hard versions. Play them very slowly, work out the fingering. I want you just to understand that to play in the keys of C and D and A Mixolydian is not that much different than G. It's just that one finger difference. And we are getting into it at this point. This is more advanced level stuff, but hopefully this is why you signed up. And if some of this is over your head right now, don't forget, you can come back to it for months and years afterwards. Look at the tabs, look at the lesson again, and you might be ready. All right, Dan, any other questions here?
Dan asks, there are a lot of cascades you've given us. How do you recommend we learn these without getting overwhelmed?
Learn them one at a time. Insert them in tunes. For a lot of you, we may not have a tune that goes from G major to A7 at this point, with the A7 lasting for a long period of time. But what we talked about last week was with some of those G licks that, put that in a song. So it's basically 2 measures of G, 2 measures of C, 2 measures of D. That would go and roll in my sweet baby's arms. Find places to put them into, and that's the answer for that one.
Jeff asked what the best way about the best way to fret around railroad spikes on the 5th string.
Yes, what a great question. I actually am using my other Granada that I have for this lesson, because my main instrument, the way the spikes are placed, I really have a hard time getting a clear note. These are both Frank Neat necks. Frank Neat is a great luthier from Kentucky, and he places the railroad spike about 3/4 of the way. So I'm looking at the spike on the 9th fret. It's 3/4 of the way up. If you put the spike in the middle, it requires more pressure to get a good sound. If you place it too close to where you might be fretting, then it buzzes. It's hard to get a good sound. And I really have a hard time with my thumb on this. And I just have to move it around, and I don't hit it all the time quite the way that I want to. This is actually one reason perhaps for using a finger rather than a thumb, because you can be a little bit more accurate. Hear the difference? I can kind of get that sweet spot right in between the spike and the fret where my thumb is too broad, and it's kind of hit or miss. But it's just one of the vagaries of playing with railroad spikes. I recommend the spikes. I have actually considered on the neck of the other instrument maybe having Frank Neat or someone else reposition the spike, but that's a very dangerous thing to do, because then it may be hard to use in other ways, and you don't want to do this yourself unless you know what you're doing. Great question.
Let's see. Carol just asked, can you put up the C scale with the alternative fingering that doesn't use the thumb on the 5th string, but the ring finger? I'm getting confused about what fingerings need to be corrected.
Well, if we go back to session 2, for that C scale, I've got the one fingering, which is suggesting with the thumb. I'll try to find out, there's not a whole lot of room in that tab to put any more information, but just keep this in mind. If there are 2 choices, and this works for the key of G as well, so you could go back to that. Index and middle and index is going to force you to use the thumb. Really, it's your choice on the top 2 strings will oftentimes dictate what happens with how you fret the 5th string. So if I want to do like my banjo in the hollow position, I have to use the thumb if that's the note that I want. But if I use the ring finger on the 2nd string and the index on the 1st, that frees the middle finger up. Those are the 2 shapes. So just come back to this point in the video and work with these 2 ways. I'll try to find a way, maybe adding that information to the girl I left behind me, and we'll put those tabs up sometime next week. But those are the 2 choices for G and C.